Good morning again. Hope you enjoyed the previous session. It seems to be very interesting. They stole 5 minutes of our time. So I guess we're gonna steal 5 minutes of coffee break, which will not be so big problem, I hope. And I'm really expecting very interesting discussion because quite a hot topic is here. It's about cybersecurity and cybersecurity with PSAPs. And I'm looking forward to enjoy the presentation of our three esteemed experts. The first one is Robert Baptiste, founder of PredictaLab Cybersecurity. The second, Louis Bernard, founder of Crisotech from the Deveryware Group. And the third presenter today will be Henning Schmidtpott, who is IT manager of Integrated Control Center of Freiburg. And I guess we'll see then the practical approach to cybersecurity. So I'm not going to steal your time anymore. You know the rules. Mobile phones off, masks on. First presenter, Robert, please, the floor is yours. It's presentation, and then we have some time for questions and answers.
Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, I will try to have some time for the Q&A at the end. So thank you to be here. So I will do a presentation, a global presentation on cybersecurity, on the risk in cybersecurity, and you will see it apply in many domains, especially yours. Who I am? So I am the founder of PredictaLab. PredictaLab is a French company, and we are working on cybersecurity in general, and especially in analyzing a big amount of data. I'm a French ethical hacker, so I spend too much time on Twitter, and so after a few months, few years, I managed to have a lot of followers, too many followers on Twitter. My first specialty is to break mobile application in general, and because I'm a little bit crazy, I love to break some governmental things in many countries. And like Gary, I do have a lot of friends or enemies in India because I worked a lot in the cyberspace in India. So before anything, when we talk about cybersecurity, we need to introduce two big notions. The first thing is a threat model. When you are in an InfoSec conference, for example, you have a lot of different products, you have a lot of different solutions. But before speaking about one solution, you need to know what is your threat? Okay, who is attacking you? What is your attacker? What your attacker looks like? So this is super important to define who is in front of you and who is the future attacker of your system. The second notion is the attack surface. So the attack surface is super important to determine. You have a system, okay, you define who is your attacker, all this guy will do in order to attack you, where he will go to attack you, what the future he will try to leverage in order to enter into your system. So, for example, when we are talking about a mobile phone, if you are discussing with someone, he will say, okay, a mobile phone, you have Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, a mobile application downloaded from the Play Store, but also you can go deeper than that. A way for an attacker to enter into a phone can be a bad communication between an application. Can be a request made by an application from a request made from your phone to the server of the company. And because the protocol is not okay, because there is a vulnerability in the communication made between the application and the server, it can be a good door for an attacker. So define an attack surface is a big process, and this is super important to do it. So the first risk, the first threat I want to see with you today is the ransomware. So ransomware is pretty famous. You can see it in all media everywhere in the world, and this is important to understand that that ransomware is here for a good reason. It's not super technical in general. People put the ransomware gang you have everywhere. I mean, we'll talk about Conti, for example, or this name of attackers. These guys are very known, but they are using old vulnerabilities. In general, they don't have super nice vulnerability, super nice 0 days. This is not working like that. They just scan all the internet, trying to use old vulnerabilities, trying to find not patch environment, and then they just exploit this environment. So this is ransomware are here for a long time because the organization are not ready to be secure with the bare minimum. And what you have to understand also is the attacker. There is a mindset. There is a mindset in this area. So when you are an hacker, the main thing you like is a challenge. You want to show that you are able to do something because this is cool and you can do it. So if you don't pay the ransom, the attacker will be happy to publish all your data on the internet, and this is not that complicated to find it on the internet. So this is why security is a big thing, is a big topic, and if you don't want to be on this kind of blog, you really need to handle that right now. The next topic is a data leak. Data leak is probably a big topic for you, for your organization, because I mean, like a lot of sector, you will handle more and more data in the next, in the very near future. I saw that, for example, emergency services are able to get localization of people, so you will have some localization data, for example. So it's super important to have in mind that this personal data need to be protected and secure. For example, this application is an Indian application. This is the equivalent of Twitter. So a few months ago, the Indian government tried to create an alternative to all the Chinese and US applications, so they created their own Twitter. And after 13 minutes, I managed I just look at the network request made between the application and the coup server, and I saw that the communication sent me a lot of information. Not all the information were shown in the UI, but in reality, if you look like the communication, you were able to find the email of the user, but also the marital status, the name of the father for the ladies, and the date of birth, this kind of thing. So this is very personal information. There is regulation, obviously, on it. And I was able to automatize everything. And if I wanted, I was able to get millions of user data like this. It was super, super easy to automatize everything. This is only one example. You can find this kind of thing on the internet a lot. For example, this is one forum. but you have many like this, and you can see that you have a lot of data. The numbers are pretty big. It's millions of data in different countries. You have Ukraine, you have Saudi Aramco, which is an oil company, India. So you can find on the internet a lot of data. It's updated almost every hours, and this is very easy to get this kind of data. So another example is a French application. So this is a messaging application made by the French government. So they release this application on Tuesday, on a Tuesday, and I wanted to see if it was really secure, because in the press, when they released that, the French government was like, okay, this is more secure than Telegram, more secure than WhatsApp. We are French. This is the best application of the world. So on the Friday, I didn't want to work, so I started to look at the application at 9 a.m. and at 10 I was able to create an account as an Élysée employee. Élysée is the French palace where you have the president. So it was not that complicated, only 1 hour to do that, and so in the press, it was complicated in terms of communication, and this is another point. Reputation is super complicated to create, to have a good reputation, but you can lose this reputation on the internet very easily. If you have a guy like me just looking at your application, 20 minutes after I publish something on Twitter, and this is the end of your product launch. So this is super important to understand that you have to consider security since the beginning. Not at the end, not in the middle, not sometimes. You have to consider security all the time and to check that regularly. Another example is an application which is called Donald Daters. So Donald Daters was an application where a Tinder for Republican. So apparently, some Republican didn't manage to find love or something like this. So they needed an application for that. I saw an ad on Fox News, and I did 3 hours after the launch of the application, and so I decided to look at the application and do my thing. So 20 minutes after, I was able to get all the database with everything, but like everything. All the message, you are beautiful, do you want me to meet, we can meet at this bar, this kind of thing. Everything was just open. It was beautiful. The latest example I have for the data leak is for the Vatican. The Vatican decided to release a connected rosary in English, I think, in order to pray. So you have an IoT thing in order to pray. So the Vatican tried to be cool and release this kind of gadget. And so at 11 p.m. I saw that, and with a bunch of friends, we tried to find some vulnerabilities in the associated apps to this connected object. And 40 minutes after, I was able to take over the account of a reporter in Manhattan. And I was in France, obviously. So the best thing here is where you are in Toulouse and you say to yourself, okay, I need to find someone in the Vatican in order to disclose my vulnerability. It was complicated, but we managed to do it. So the latest topic, and I only have 5 minutes left, this is a digital footprint. So we are in the core business of PredictaLab. Today, you have something quite big, which is called OSINT, Open Source Intelligence, and with all the public information, you can create the footprint of someone. It can be very useful in a lot of different, in a lot of situations, especially when you work in cybersecurity, when you do red team engagement or on this kind of thing. Another example to show you the power of OSINT. In my Twitter, I used to publish some photos of my travel, and I'm doing some OSINT quiz to my community in order to create some game. And I just published this photo with nothing else, and I asked, okay, what is my plane number, but also what is my seat number? You have nothing, just the sun, a part of the plane, and clouds, that's all. 30 minutes after, 20 people answered to my tweet with the correct answer. And because this is totally doable. It's not complicated because you can say, okay, Baptiste Robert, I know this guy is French. He's French. He is living in Toulouse. He's pretty proud of that, and he's used to do Toulouse, Paris for work. So it's 6 a.m. He published his photo. The sun is on the right, so it's probably Toulouse, a trip from Toulouse to Paris. And you can look at on flight radar, for example, you can look at all the different flights, you can look at the model, and you can say, okay, your seat number is probably between 8 and 9. The latest slide, and I don't take any responsibility, but I put everything on the Gary head. We check some information about the president of EENA, and just to show that everyone is concerned by data leak. This is super important to show that, for example, your password, your current password, or maybe an old password, I don't know, can be in a data leak, and maybe you don't know it. So there is some ways to find if you are concerned about a data leak, but the question is not here. You are concerned about a data leak, but it's super important to be able to know your digital footprint. If you are concerned about a data leak, which information leaked, and what you have to do as a next step. Last slide. OSINT is everywhere. This is really a big thing, and you will see more OSINT-based investigation in the future. It can be used in different places for different stuff. For example, when you recruit someone in your organization, it can be a good thing to check that this guy is not part of a neo-Nazi forum or something like this. For due diligence, you are a big company, you do have some other third parties. You want to know if in 5 years this company will be here, or if this company is not involved in a weird business somewhere else. E-reputation we'll talk about a little bit. When you will release the product, it can be cool to know what people are saying on the internet about your product. And also, this is what we are doing a lot, monitoring during a crisis. You will announce the reduction of of production in a factory. You want to know if something will happen, if employee will, I don't know, will try to keep someone in an office or something like this. And the last one is helping authorities in general, working with the police and military police in order to help them to do their work. Because with OSINT, you can have a good idea of what people are. And so if there is a suspect, you can just do an OSINT search and find information about him. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. It was quite interesting. It was scary, I must say, and it is a question is probably what are we supposed to do now when we see all this. I understand that whoever has a mobile phone which is different than Nokia 3310 is at certain level of risk. So it's just a matter of compromise you make yourself, you know, how much you want to risk, how much data you want to expose. Otherwise you are always at risk. Is it true, or is there a perfect protection?
There is no perfect protection, but the main question is really is the threat model. If you have an attacker which is motivated to attack you, and if this attacker has some resources, I mean, this is just a question of time. So before being compromised. So the question is, as you said, to know the attackers. Okay, I can be attacked by this kind of people. I can put this protection, and also the main role in cybersecurity is to have some container between your different life. You should have a phone for work, a phone for personal matters, and you should apply this philosophy everywhere. If you travel to Riga, for example, you should have a specific computer with nothing else on it. So this is some good practice. And as you said, the question is, okay, if someone is stealing my bag right now, what are the information he will have in his hands?
Yep. Thank you. Can I kindly ask you to set this clock on 15 minutes, because it was set on 20 and we have no time for questions, but I will still like to let the audience ask the questions if there are any. So do we have some questions related to presentation? No? Yep. That reminds me, when we were introducing a new radio communication system, it was encrypted. And I got a question from my superiors. Can American embassy listen to us with this? I say, yeah, probably yes. But is the information we are sending through these channels really important for American embassy and for someone to engage, to listen? How you are going to catch the criminal who is smuggling drugs or doing things like this? Do you really think this is an information of it? It's important that this guy cannot listen to you. American embassy probably has meaning. Everything can be discovered with knowledge and tools, but it's a matter of validity of information and how important this information is for the one who wants to steal it, probably also.
There is also a second level, which is one data alone can be, you can say, okay, there is no, it's useless. This data is useless alone. But if you put this data with another one, you will have a good picture. So this is also important to say, okay, this data alone, it will do nothing with that, for sure. But if it's taking another data with it, okay, we will have the big picture, and it will have a good image of the whole thing. So
sure.
I should protect this data and this data.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much again. Now I invite Louis Bernard from Deveryware to present
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here this morning. So my name is Louis. I come from France as well. And I created a company called Crisotech, which aims to help public and private organizations in the management of their crises, both on the situation, decision-making, anticipation side, and also on the crisis communication. And I was asked today to talk a little bit about crisis communications in cyber crisis specifically, because this is the aim of this seminar. And basically, I wanted you to come out of this 15 minutes thinking that, yes, it's different, but second, there are a few things that you can apply, and yes, you should be interested because you are a victim, okay? First of all, quite a lot of people in this room are from the public sector, from the public service, helping people in need, and possibly one of the first reactions would be, why would I be subject to a cyber attack? I'm not a big company. There is no money. We all know this. There is no money in my organization to be stolen, and quite possibly the fact that my job is to help people makes me maybe on the bottom of the list of cyber attacker. Sadly, not the case. Okay, you've all seen hospitals being hacked. All other companies or organizations dedicated to public service being hacked. So the question is not, am I a victim? More, when will I be the victim? All right? You've got two types of organizations I work with in cybersecurity. Those who have had a major cyber attack and those who will have a major cyber attack. And of course, the more prepared are the ones who had one. Okay? So, I'm here to talk about the communication side on the cyber crisis, okay? The difference between a cyber crisis and any other crisis that your organization might face is that, well, the first difference is it's a little bit complicated because you have no idea how your organization works. Let me say that again. You have no idea how precisely your organization works. You have no idea of the technology that is required for your organization, whatever that might be, to work and to proceed. You have an idea of what kind of professional applications you are using. You have an idea that maybe your computer is not the latest on the market. You probably know that. And you have an idea maybe of where your servers might be and who can have access to them physically. Not much more than this, all right? The rest of your organization is heavily based on technology, and the very fact that you don't know where it is, how secure it is something that is very telling. I'm not saying that you should know all this. I don't, for my company, but that you are aware of the fact that you don't know it all is a good thing the good place to start. Second, the problem about cyber crisis is that it can impact the whole organization. Let's say you're a company with 15 warehouses and there is a fire in one of the warehouses, you still have 14. You might have a problem in delivery or production, but you still have 14. If you have a cyber attack on your network of warehouses, you might not have a job or a company or a service at all until it's back up online. So that's interesting. It's one of those crises where you don't really know what's happening, but what's happening can be absolutely major, and most of the time is. Okay? And in terms of crisis communication, what is very interesting, and what I put in my title, is that it's one of the only crises where you as an organization can appear as much as a victim as an accomplice. And why is that? Because what the attackers might do to your user database, for example, the people who work with you or the people you work for, and leaking it online, is making information that was entrusted to you open and unprotected. And the very fact that this information was entrusted to you is now open is a breach of trust. And a lot of the companies or organizations I work with have a hard time grasping that the rest of the world, the public opinion, their clients, their employees, consider them also as an accomplice, as a part of the problem, rather than only and solely as the victim of the attack, where the organization itself or its leaders very much think that they are only the victim. Okay, so what are the risks? The risks, I see 3 risks in terms of communication for your company, for your organization. First, appear like you don't care. It's very easy to look like you don't care. How do you do that? You don't talk about it, all right? You are being secret, you don't communicate about it, you're not open about what's happening to you, and you appear like you don't do anything. The very fact that you're not saying that you do something about it looks like you're not doing anything about it. So first you have to have some kind of a communication strategy. You might be a hospital, you might be a municipality, you might be a city, you might be a private company. You have to show that you care and that you're doing something about it. If you don't, you're part of the problem, okay? Second, somebody is going to talk about it. You're an organization, you have a service to provide, the service is interrupted, there is leakage of whatever data was entrusted to you, it is newsworthy, something is happening, so it is news, and something is going to talk about it. You might not like it, you might not like the fact that it's open and that it's newsworthy, but it is. So somebody is going to talk about it. A reporter is going to report, all right? Or an ethical hacker is going to show or call you, informing you that they have info to show. So the second, the risk is appearing that you're not concerned with the conversation. So if the conversation is not to your liking, be part of the conversation. All right, talk about it. Be one of the people who are talking about it, not let only the other guy speak. Okay? Third risk, of course, is being the bad guy. All right? Reputation is key to your to carrying to your services, to the continuity of your activity, regardless of the activity. Of course, if you're in the public sector, and you're a hospital, your activity is going to go on, all right? But the level of trust in your activity might be impacted. And so you've all tried and convince very intelligent people or very intelligent looking people to get vaccinated over the past 6 or 10 months. So you know that very smart people can make very stupid decisions. And you know that the very fact that your reputation as a medical doctor, as a representative of a hospital, as a public safety operator, this reputation gives you the basis in order to convince to evacuate this part of the city before there is the storm, to get vaccinated when it's a new vaccine on the market, or to do whatever is required for you to do. You know that even if you're in that kind of sector, reputation is key. So anything that would affect this reputation goes against the greater continuity of your activity. So it's not only a business problem, it's also a public problem, okay? And so not only do you have to deal with the crisis itself, trying to call all your employees when your active directories of employees is down, very hard, right? Trying to make sense of what's happening when there is no CCTV available, when you're far from where it's all happening, when you absolutely don't know where your servers actually physically are, quite possibly this part of Europe, up north. So what you do in order to fix this? First, engage internally, all right? Your employees, the people who work for you, the people who you are responsible for are your first stakeholder. Okay, so you absolutely have to engage and have a conversation with them first, in order to regain trust. Yes, you're interested in information. Individual information to me, and yes, this information has been breached, so there is a trust issue. But also, you know the bigger picture here, you know where we're going, you know that we have been a victim of this cyber attack and it affects our ability to carry on our mission. I need you as a member of my organization to help me going forward. So the internal communication, which is always not always, which is often forgotten by the organization that we consult for. Always the last part of their thinking, because they all, well, the private sector, they all think about the clients, or the banks, or the shareholders. And the public sector, they all think about the end user, the citizen. But when I'm dispatched to that organization and I start saying, okay, your first stakeholders are the people who are talking, you are working for you, and you have to keep talking to them, whatever means are available to you. Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, maybe we start with that, so maybe we do. Okay, so engage internally. Second, take responsibility for it. I'm not saying that you should take responsibility for the attack itself, quite the opposite. But take responsibility for the fact that, yes, you have been a victim of cyber attack. Yes, you are taking this very, very seriously. And yes, you think that is a problem. And yes, your entire organization is working on that particular problem. And yes, you don't take it lightly that information, whatever information that is, that was interested to you, has been attacked, breached, possibly exposed. And yes, it's your question. It's a question of trust. And yes, you'll do whatever is possible in order to gain that trust back. Right? There is a little bit of acceptability of the cyber risk these days, but it's waning. Okay, I see some companies and public organization who tend to have nice-ish press when they are attacked, but I'm not counting on it for the next 3 years. Let's say your big cyber attack is in 2023, after 80% of your industry sector. It will look bad that you're the next one. Okay, the first ones had nice press, nice-ish press, not so much in the future. And lastly, how are you going to communicate? A little bit precise here, but it's important. Who do you want to address? What would be the main target? Would it be the citizens? If yes, the citizens of that part of the city, of this neighborhood? Would it be the people who went into your hospital and have had records for the past, I don't know, 2 years, 5 years, whatever records were breached? Is it clients? Is it people, bringing stuff to your warehouses and the warehouse is blocked, so you have to inform them to turn back? Whatever your target is, you have to draw the precise message. Okay? So when you have the target, you have the channel. Do I tweet about it? Do I do a press conference? Do I write a precise email? And if yes, how do I do that now my email is out? What kind of stakeholders should I map? This idea of who should I be talking to and into which format is very, very important to prepare before any crisis. Okay? So if I have to sum it up, because my time is almost up, first, don't for a second think that if you're the victim of a cyber attack, people, employees, press, social media, other organizations around you, the political leaders, whatever, are going to be nice to you and treat you as a victim, as they probably should in your according to you. Quite possibly they will think of you as part of the problem and possibly an accomplice because you didn't do things right. Okay? So prevent this, be better at security. map your stakeholders, prepare what you are going to say, how you're going to say it, and, you know, get organized. And that's it for me, 5 seconds before the clock.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Louis. So we've heard what can happen, we've heard what to do if it happens, or how to behave. Do you have some questions? Yes, over there. Please, can we have the mic handled down there? Is there anybody? Yeah.
Hi, yes, I'm Brandon Ablate at EENA. It's kind of like a pet issue of mine, but there's kind of it's best practice to have insurance for cyber events these days. And it's become kind of like a trend to just pay off, right, when you get compromised. And your insurer will encourage you to do so, because your insurance also covers actual recovery, which is more expensive, right? Yes. What do you have to say about this dynamic?
Okay, right. Okay, the politically correct version is never pay a ransom to those guys. The real politic answer to this is, yeah, maybe sometimes you will have to. Ransom is one thing, all right? It's a lot of money, especially for, you know, a budget-tight kind of organization, but this is only one thing. As you said very precisely, the recovery of it might be much, much more expensive than the actual ransom. So the risks of it happening to you and of it taking a lot of resources in order to get back online, is that a good thing to ensure and to have insurance for? Quite probably, all right? So let's not think about cybersecurity insurance only with the, you know, thinking in mind the ransom part of it, but quite possibly all the fees, all the money that you are going to spend in forensics, in recovery, in order to get back online. In that sense, it makes perfect sense to insure it, whether or not you're in the mindset of paying a ransom. So I'd say yes, it's a risk. You can alleviate this risk, mitigate it by insurance, do so. The ransom part of it, of course, I'm against it. No one wants to give millions of dollars to Conti or others or of those groups. Of course, we're against. What I would say is it's case-by-case analysis. I would say I would stop there. I hope it answers your question. Maybe other questions? Sorry, that's your job.
Thank you, Aloy.
No, fine then.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And now since we are all aware that our PSAPs can be subject to attacks and that they can be very sensitive to cyber attacks, especially now when we are moving to cloud and working remotely, also the control rooms. We have the specialist from Freiburg, Mr. Henning Schmidtpott, who is going to tell us a few words about cybersecurity in PSAPs and do some recommendations, some practical recommendations. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Yes, after we heard these two very interesting presentations about cybersecurity, I will give now a detailed view on what you can do in your PSAP to handle the cybersecurity risks. At the beginning, some words about me. My name is Henning Schmidtpott. I worked as a paramedic for more than 10 years and as a call taker and dispatcher at the PSAP in Freiburg. The PSAP in Freiburg is a special PSAP in Germany because we provide the AML endpoint for all PSAPs in Germany. I have a Master of Science in Information Systems with a focus on cybersecurity. The three goals of cybersecurity, perhaps you already heard about it. It's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And on the next slides, I give you some examples why all these three goals are important and why you are affected in the PSAP by all these 3 goals. Let's start with confidentiality. If you are an PSAP, usually you are processing personal data with medical diagnosis. So confidentiality is important because this personal data are personal data and they are not for everyone. Another example is that you have building plans or something in your PSAP, and that's of course subjects you have to secure. Of course there are a lot of more examples, but that's just 2 of them. Integrity. Why you need integrity at your PSAP? Imagine you have a faulty behavior at your CAD. For example, you enter that in the CAD, the call taker enters that there's a big fire, but the CAD say transform it to a small fire. Then you know what happened. The units usually going to a big fire were not alarmed, and there are only perhaps one firefighter unit is going to a big building because of a faulty behavior of the CAD. Another example is a false location. If you imagine you get an emergency call from the one end of the city, but the data is not correct, and the CAD says, okay, it's at the other end of the city, then the help going to the wrong way. So that's integrity, and that's important in the PSAP, of course. Yes, and of course availability. It's clear if the emergency numbers are not reachable, if you can't call 112 because the servers are down or the network isn't working, you have no availability, and yes, it's not easy to be informed about the emergency events in that case. But it's not only the emergency number, of course, reachability of the CAD is important. And again, there are some more subjects in the objects in your PSAPs that have to be available all the time. So that's just 2 examples of them. Now let's have a small view at the threats, and these are threats. They are common. They are threats for all companies, but they are also threats for you in the PSAP. For example, have you ever thought of a fire in your PSAP or water? And perhaps you have your servers in the cellar, and then there comes water inside. That's threats, you have to think about it. Another example is failure of service providers. If you have a service provider and they have problems, the problems came to you, because if it's, for example, the network operator, it's not reachable, then perhaps the 112 is not reachable. So you have to think about it by perhaps using a second or a third service provider, independent from each other. And of course, another threat are attacks. But cybersecurity are not only attacks, it can be totally different causes, like fire, water, or disruption of power supply, another example. So how to handle all these threats and how to reduce the risks. You see, there are so much of it that the only way is to go a structured way, by a structured approach. And for this practical approach, you don't have to search all this information on different websites. You can find it all concluded in an EENA document. You find it at the EENA homepage. And in this document, you see the steps you have to go to reduce the risks. It's based on IT Grundschutz. That's from Germany, from the German Federal Office for Information Security, the BSI, but it's translated to English, so it's for everyone usable. And I give now an overview over the steps in this document. First of all, you have to analyze the structure of your PSAP. The second step is assess your protection requirements. What are the dangers? What can happen? And after you have done that, you can identify the relevant modules of the IT Grundschutz and at the end implement the measures. And you can do it step by step because it's a very long process if you want to finish this all. Let's look in detail what is meant by the structure of your PSAP. The structure of your PSAPs are first the processes. Processes like handle a 112 call, handle an e-call, etc. Second are applications, your CAD systems, your IT systems like servers and clients, and your communication links and networks. And don't forget buildings and rooms, very important. Here are some examples of processes and applications. As I said, information received by phone call, by telefax. Okay, that's because in Germany we still use telefax. I hope not in all countries. And every process gets an identifier, and with that identifier, you see there the applications that are used for these processes. We need this identifier later. In the next step, you identify the IT systems and networks, and again, the depending objects, the applications that are depending on that IT systems, or the other way around. The same with buildings and rooms. For example, you have the dispatching room. The dispatching room is dependent on the processes P1 and P2. P1 was a call by 112. P2 was the telefax. And but beware that you have much more rooms than only the dispatching room. You have the computer center, you have management office rooms, and archive rooms or conference rooms. And after that, you define your protection requirements. You can think of your the damage scenarios. You can have, for example, you can have violations of laws. You can have impaired personal integrity or financial impacts. Of course, in the public sector, it's other views than in the industry, but you have it, of course. And after you define the protection requirements, you can categorize them in normal, high, and very high. Perhaps there are some scenarios where you have only a normal risk, and some you have a higher. You have to categorize it. And that you have to do for every process. You remember the processes we defined at the beginning. And after that, you look at the measures and modules. You find for every module, you find hints, you find requirements, and then For example, you see for the backup concept, it's important that legal requirements are determined. An example, if you store your emergency calls for 5 years, you have to store it, or you don't have to store it in the backup for 10 years. So you have to store it there for 5 years too. And or another example is, one hint is that you use an geographical remote storage location, and if you have a replacement PSAP, you can store the data there. What are the conclusions? The conclusions are that cybersecurity, to reduce the risks, you need a structured approach. And you can use the EENA document as a framework for it. Of course, you have to adapt it, because not every PSAP has telefax, or not every PSAP has Wi-Fi. Some have, some not. So you have to adapt it. And it's including minimal requirements only. So if you say you want to protect it more, of course you can. And it depends on your situation at your PSAP. And the most important thing is that cybersecurity and reducing the risks is a continuing process. So you will never be finished with it. If you think you are finished, you can start at the beginning again, because the world is changing and the cybersecurity risks are changing. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping on time. And our session is exactly as it was predicted, but we unfortunately started late, so we are ending a little bit late. So I have a question: if there is any urgent question, someone who must know something related to this presentation right now, please ask now. If there are no such questions, please first read the EENA document, and then for the things that are not quite clear, come back to our presenter and ask him for the details and for everything you wanted to know.